Here they come, yo. Here they come. Here they come, yo. Here they come.
Ladies and gentlemen,
once again, it's the Here Goes Nothing podcast on your Friday night radio stream, live stream podcast with your boy Ron Duke and your man Black Fire, the Bricklayers. We're a little bit late, our apologies, but tonight is a good night. It's a special night. We got a special guest in the house. We will be talking about mental health and depression. And we have a licensed therapist in the building with us tonight. Let me see if I get this name right. How's everybody doing? We have tonight with us Shamona Mcfadden. Round of applause, everybody. Round of applause, everybody. Since we late tonight, I guess we just gonna get right to the show. And one of the reasons for this show tonight, for me personally, I had a friend commit suicide this week. Or me and Ron, one of our friends, committed suicide this week. Which prompted me to get the idea to say, let's talk about these things that we don't talk about in the black community enough. You know, signs, I guess, warning signs, what, you know, triggers. How can we help? You know, like for me, I felt that I didn't see this coming when I should have and didn't intervene when I could have. But we're neither here nor there. My good friend Lavardo Fisher passed away this week, and I want to give him a shout out, RIP. And this show for me is for him and to anybody else that might be going through a situation similar to his. All right, got the hat on and everything. So, Shamona, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your profession, before we get down, you know, tell the people what it is that you do and how can you help people like us that might be going through some things and need some guidance.
Yes. First, good evening, everyone that's tuned in. First, thanks for allowing me to be on the show tonight. While we are having a great time, music and everything is playing, but also for a very serious matter that's taking place. So not just suicide, but mental health overall. It is something that I would say, well, first off, let me tell you a little bit about me. I am a licensed mental health therapist. I have my private practice called Lotus Connect, where I've been doing more teletherapy, and I actually enjoy teletherapy. I get to be in my own home, but I also get to connect with many of those from all over that are facing other mental health concerns as well. As you're mentioning, and we'll get into suicide and stuff like that, I can truly say that I have seen an increase in mental health concerns and mental health challenges. If you ever hear me talking about it, I never say problems, because whenever we think of problems, we always deem it as something negative, but there are challenges. And I typically tell people that we all have some kind of mental health concern. If you've lost a loved one, Daniel, you just mentioned of your good friend committing suicide, that's going to affect you. Anyone that's gone through a divorce or had a loved one pass away or lost their job or something like that, and it's particularly right now what we're experiencing with COVID, that is going to trigger us. I was able to do a little bit of research just to kind of help you guys along the way. And some of the things I'm seeing right now, and I have it written down, so you'll see me looking back and forth, is that about 53% of adults would say that their mental health has been impacted due to COVID. So if you think about it, last year this time, we were out partying We were out having a good time. We were able to hug and kiss our neighbors. We didn't have to per se worry about where our next meal was coming from, or would you be able to cover your mortgage or even your rent for the month. We didn't have to worry about not being able to see our grandmother or any of our loved ones, or even, as we say, just hug them. I'm from South Carolina, so we have that thing. Come here, let me put a hug around your neck. So last year, this time, none of this was on the forefront, I would say, for America. Now, other places it was. So you look at then and you look where we are now, and our entire world has shifted. Typically, when I talk with clients, I say the COVID culture. And so understanding that the COVID culture is here, but how are we adapting and adjusting to the COVID culture? And so in that, things that were considered our norm, being able to just up and go to the grocery store and not have to worry about anything. Our COVID culture is, okay, do I want to go to the store early in the morning when I know it's not crowded? Or is there there's still a certain amount of people that you're allowing in any of these stores, particularly right now? Or even, will you have the supplies and items that I'm used to purchasing in the store, because we know that many factories are still delayed, or we know that shipping and so forth, is delayed as well. So all of those things really play a significant role in where we are right now. And at any point, guys, please stop me, because I can go on and on about this.
No, you go.
Listen, I'll talk for a quick minute and then I'll be silent, like you got to ask me some questions. But some of the things that we're seeing, and so like I said, I wanted to at least give statistics, so it's not just how I feel and a lot of the things that I may see, but actually what some of the research is showing. And so we're seeing right now that at least 40% of adults are struggling with their mental health or even substance abuse. If we think about it, when the pandemic really first started and, we closed down, what we identified as essential businesses were open was we had our large stores, such as our Walmarts and our Targets. A lot of the club stores, Sam, BJ's, Costco, all of these places. You had your grocery stores. You had your pharmacies or your little neighborhood stores, your Family Dollar, Dollar Generals, and stuff like that. But additionally, what was considered a essential store were liquor stores.
That will always be essential. People got to cope.
You are right, but it's how it's used. And so if you think about it right then and there, it says that you saw an increase not only in substance abuse, but you saw an increase also in drug use. You saw an increase in depression and anxiety. You saw an increase, at least a 31% increase in depression and anxiety, or at least people saying they suffered from the pandemic with depression and anxiety. Now, let me back up for a few minutes, because it's not to say that these things weren't there, but if you were to do the statistics or do a study of this back, and I looked at it, a study of this back in January 2020, it was about 31%. And if you look at where we are, or at least in June of last year, 53%, that's a 20% increase. That's significant. To say out of the four of us or whomever we are, right now, at least one of us now is suffering from something dealing with mental health or drugs and alcohol or something in that case. You see that 13% actually started or increased their substance abuse. So we're talking also now about recreational use. And I'm quoting them. We're talking about recreational, medicinal purposes, however we define it. All of those things are related to our mental health, but they're also related to the current culture in which we are experiencing. You see also that some of the things that are taking place is insomnia. You're seeing anxiety, again, drug and alcohol. And then also you're just seeing people being more withdrawn. So the biggest thing that I'm realizing, or the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now, is that our mental health is important. There has been an increase in the need for people to take better care of their mental health, but also what are we doing to make sure we're addressing our mental health?
So, like in the case of my friend, he committed suicide, right? Had nothing to do with COVID. He lost his son maybe like 3-4 years back to fatal gunshot. They were playing with a gun inside the house, and gun went off, and his kid got killed. And he never recovered from there, and he went downhill, like started disconnecting from everybody. We couldn't get in touch with him. I guess heavy drug use, and I guess he couldn't take it no more, and he just wanted to give up, and he gave up, So, like, I hadn't heard from him. He had finally sent me a new number, and when I tried to call it, he never responded. And I had called him maybe 2 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden I got a text from one of our other friends that has a family member that lives near him, who told me that he was in critical condition on life support because he OD'd on some pills when they found him. So in the case like that, like the loss of a loved one, how do you cope with that? Like, I can't even imagine it if I was him in his shoes to say what I would do if I lost somebody like that.
You made a comment earlier. You said that there weren't any warning signs. All of what you mentioned to me are and were warning signs. Typically, when a person is going first through depression, they are withdrawn. You see their patterns changing. So, let me back this up. There is a difference between depression and depressed episodes. We all have depressed episodes. We all are in those points and periods of where we're sad. Like I said, loss of loved ones, relationship, loss of a job, just the typical things that happen in life, a car accident, and now where you're going to get your finances from. All of those things cause depressed episodes. However, when those things aren't treated, that then leads to depression. And so depression becomes withdrawn from society, isolated. Your eating patterns change. Your behavior in terms of going to work do you actually go to work? Those things change. So as you mentioned, or there were to me those warning signs. It's just, we kind of say, oh, he's going through something. He'll be okay. He'll bounce back. But when you're realizing those things are taking place, and I even tell it with my friends also, I'm invading your personal space. I'm calling to see what's going on. Hey, I have not talked to you now in a month. I need you to send me a text message at least saying you are okay. FaceTime me, nod, blink, smile, sneeze, something. I just need to see your face. And so I'm letting them know that they're not alone. And I always, reference, maybe it's because of my profession and maybe it's just who I am, but I'm constantly telling them, hey, I'm here. If you need anything, let me know what's going on. Are you okay? So I'm always that person. And I even charge everyone else that's listening to do the same thing. When it comes to suicide, I always have this statement. I wrote it down to make sure I said it right. Don't allow permanent decisions. Don't make permanent decisions based on temporary situations. And so what typically, say it again?
I said that definitely makes sense.
And so when there are two things that happen with depression. With suicide. First, it is a call. It is a cry for help. It is that, okay, it's unbearable. I can't deal with it. But I actually, and I tell my clients a lot of time, have you really thought about what happens after you commit suicide? Yes, your pain is over, but now what? Look at the lives you've left behind. And so we have in-depth conversations. Was it worth it? Oh, well, I just wanted to stop the pain. Well, you did more than stop your pain. Or your intent was to do more than stop your pain. And then they're like, well, I didn't really think of it that far. And so in the case with your friend, counseling.
Yeah, but most of the time I did speak to him, like he always gave me the appearance that everything was okay, and then like him being in Orlando, you can't really just pop up on somebody and then they don't make themselves available to you to talk to. Cause like I wanted to go see him, but I couldn't get in contact with him for the longest.
And this is going to be the hardest thing you probably hear me say. He didn't want to be saved after this point. What took place with him, and as you said, it's been 4 years. So that's been something as we have our conversations, you'll realize I love using analogies. From the way you've described it to me, this is something that has been festering for 4 years. So imagine having a sore or a pain or ailment for 4 years that you have not been able to get rid of. And you keep looking at it or you keep feeling it every morning. Okay, this has to end. So finally, he's in a place of where, okay, I'm done with it. I'm ready for this pain to end. And so at this point, nothing it seems that you could have said. And let me take that back, because had you been able to reach him, but if it wasn't then, would it have been later? Because again, you have to keep in mind, this isn't something that just is temporary. And most of the time when you're talking about suicide, there are two things that take place. There are those first that, as I said, it's a temporary situation. And I used to have it when I worked on a college campus. Oh my goodness, I broke up my boyfriend. I want to go drink bleach. Honey, do you understand what you are doing? Do you get what is about to happen? You talking about you want to go drink bleach, baby? You about to go. You don't have to worry about him cheating on you again. So that first situation of where it's temporary. Oh my goodness, this is what's happened. I'm embarrassed. I can't believe, I was found out doing all these other things. Mind you, this was college campus. And then you have the other one of something of where he is harboring that pain that he's felt. Something of where the emotions of losing his son, and especially if he feels that causation and so forth was placed upon him. That's something that's unbearable, that if it's not treated professionally will lead to that. And as you mentioned, the depression added with, I think you said substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say substance abuse?
Yeah, heavy.
Was alcohol involved as well?
I'm assuming alcohol would be involved. I know he had called me one time, like almost shortly after, and he had called me to tell me that he had took something. I want to say it was Flakka, but he wanted to tell me the story that he freaked out. He thought he saw some snake in the car, and he actually had called the police to the car, and come to find out there was nothing in the car. He was on something. I want to say it was Flakka at the time. Yeah.
I used to have my clients, and we'll talk more about just the mental health piece overall. But when it came to suicide, I used to have my clients listen. If you ever feel like you get to this point, I just need you to do me a favor. Just call and tell me bye. I don't want to hear it from somebody else. It is not my intent to stop you, but I just need you to call and tell me bye so I can make sure that we've said our final goodbyes, and I can make sure that I crack jokes with them. I said, but I can make sure also that I don't have our appointment scheduled for the next week. And so,
wow.
And so, well, it does two things. It lets them know that if they're serious about this, there is that one last person that they could go to. And so with me, we crack jokes, and I'll be like, okay, hey, and they're like, Miss Mcfadden, I'm just calling, it's never happened, but should it be, I'm just calling to tell you bye. That allows me then to delve deeper. Okay, well, you decided today is the day. Okay, so what are you going to do? Have you written your letter? Have you done this? And I'll go through a series of questions. Have you picked out what you're going to wear for your funeral? Who's going to find your body? Are you going to be in a place where they can find your body? So I'm not telling them stop, but because of all of these questions I'm asking them, it's now making them think, darn, that's a lot of stuff I didn't think about.
Yeah.
Darn, you know what? I need to rethink this. And so I'm now channeling them, and I'm like, are you sure you're ready for this? And if they say, yeah, at that point, okay, well, where are you? You're so-and-so. Is there anyone around you? There isn't? Okay. I have to immediately report that. So at least I've given myself time, and at least they've given me notification so I can report that. But I always tell them, listen, if you are at that point and you feel that you have no other hope, call and tell me bye. That's all I need you to do. And again, it seems as if we're cracking jokes. And they're like, Miss Mcfadden, you're playing, or some of my clients, Shamona, you're playing. Nah, man, call and tell me bye. Because we need to do our last little cry together, our last laugh. And I'm sorry. So one thing I do also for me when I'm doing therapy is I add a bit of humor to it just so we can laugh. And it's not the stiff, so tell me about your life and what's going on. And when you were 5, how did you feel? So, I really go into, so what happened when you were 5? Say, what? Girl, stop playing. So I really do engage with my clients like this. But going back to just the piece of mental health overall, I think that we have to take it a bit more serious. And when I think about and I'm going to say overall, the Black community, so that's many of the ethnicities and so forth as well. We have not really done a good job of taking our mental health serious. I tend to say that there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. We all have experienced some type of mental health concerns. And it goes a little deeper when you're talking about mental illness, such as the schizophrenias and stuff like that. I don't know about you, but how many times have you heard growing up, "Ooh, that little boy over there, he is slow." No, there's something really wrong. "Oh, don't talk to Mr. So-and-so. That man is crazy." No, there is something really wrong. "Oh, well, we better make sure, you know what, baby, don't worry about it. Just pray about it." And what?
What I pray about it, John.
I did.
Boy,
I was able to
pray everything away.
I was able to do a workshop with the church. And so we literally talked about the piece of religion and prayer and stuff like that. And it was so funny. I even heard a pastor say, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, we are quick to say, as believers, we are quick to say, "Oh, well, baby, just pray about it." So what, I'm going to pray and he's still going to bash my head in? What? I've been praying this whole long. He's still bashing my head. And what am I to do next? So when it comes to things like that, in terms of mental health in the Black community, first, we have to take it a bit more serious. We have to realize and understand that there are things going on. We have to realize and understand and being accepting of the differences for people. Right now, when you think of homosexuality, the population we see for homelessness amongst teenagers is significantly high because they've come out to their parents and their parents have shunned them. When we think about, again, homosexuality, I'm sorry to say it, but growing up, and I'm from South Carolina again, so, "Oh, don't mess with them. They're sweet. They're this and that, X, Y, and Z." Accepting. So all of that is also a part of mental health and being able to accept and allow people to be comfortable in who they are. It's about recognizing and understanding what the differences that we all have and how are we now, again, accepting those things, but working towards a better health. I say that I like to break down the stagnation that causes people from growth. So we all reach those periods of, I'm just like, "You know what, man, I'm just going through it right now. Like, I don't know where my motivation is coming from." So let's talk about that. What was motivation like for you before? What were some of the things you're doing? Let's identify the root cause of why your motivation stopped. Well, it really stopped after my son passed away. And what happened after your son passed away? I felt like a part of me was missing. So tell me about that. If I can go and switch to a different piece as well, when we're talking about death and grief, as people just in general, we have not been taught how to deal with death. And I can ask you guys that are on here right now, have any of you had someone that passed away?
Yes, of course.
I mean, really close, I would say no. I mean, close as in friends, but not like a, immediate relative or something like that.
And for anyone that passed away, what was your response or reaction, or what did you do after that?
Keep going.
I just went into deep thought, thinking about how short life is, how the whole family's affected, my whole mortality, pretty much.
When I was finishing my master's and I was doing my clinicals, my professor at the time asked, she said, "Is there anything that will present challenges for you?" And I raised my hand and I was like, "Death." And people are like, "Well, why?" And I'm like, "It happens. The one thing we know, we're gonna die." And I cracked jokes about it, but I was very serious. And so what resonated for me was, we can't change that. We have to change how we receive that. And so and I've experienced death. My mother passed away. So before that happened, I started looking at death a little differently. And even afterward, it definitely changed my perspective. And so one of the things I tell people always is we are very quick to memorialize Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
still hear
yes,
you.
yes.
Okay.
Nancy.
We are very quick to memorialize death, but not celebrate the life. So when a person passes away, oh my goodness, like every time I think about them, I cry. They're no longer here. How am I going to be able to go on? You guys mentioned, you go into deep thought, and it's just like the world is changed and just everything is different. What worked for me and what I encourage with my clients, talk about that person. I've had clients that have said, my mother passed away and I've never really felt like I've cried. And I'm like, why? Well, because I wasn't allowed to cry. Talk about them. When I ask, what are some things you remember about your grandmother? Oh, well, she did this, she did that. What was your grandmother's favorite thing to cook that you liked? My grandmother made sweet potato pie. Okay, what was one of the funniest things you remember your grandmother saying? Oh, my grandmother used to do, tell me something funny that you remember about your grandmother. What was it like going to your grandmother's house on Saturday? Well, my mom made us go over, the whole day. So we had a full conversation about grandmother. And what we do sometimes is we almost erase that person as if they didn't exist in your life. So Daniel, you talking about your friend, if I can, ask for a second, what do you remember most about your friend? And this is for both of you. I think you said he was friends with both of you, right? You and Ron. Okay, so what do you remember most about your friend?
I mean, he's been my friend since high school. We used to run track together and everything. And then we actually had a little group together in high school, man. It's crazy.
What was the name of the group? Or what kind of group was it?
We never actually got the name that far, but we were practicing like these dance routines, and the thing that hit me the most is like he's the second one out of that little group to die.
Hey.
I had another friend in that group that died also, not by suicide, but he went down a bad path as well. But we had a little two-step there, but we never actually performed or did anything. But that's kind of how we all bonded, because we all
Let me go find some old videos of you.
we all liked to dance, and we ran track, so that's how we got tight. And then when I moved over here, he came over here too, and then we linked up here, and then we used to hang out. And he was a very humble guy, straight up guy, good dude. What
was one of the things you remember most that you guys did, or someplace you went?
Our biggest memories, like even when I was talking to my other friend that's really close to him, them two are like brothers. They both used to come over to our house like every day. Like me and my cousin and Ron, we always be in the house. And one of my cousins, he's a dread, and they used to make this. We had this roots wine that we made from scratch, right? So we
what?
Yeah.
So
Guess what?
So my cousin, he's a dread, right?
Roots wine.
And he used to live in Jamaica, like with
Roots,
the real Rastas. And they know how to make the wine from scratch. So we used to have these 5-gallon Home Depot buckets, and we had wine galore. We would have like 5 buckets, like staged. Like one would be ready, one would be.
This is while you guys were in high school, or this is after?
This is way after high school. We're grown,
I'm about to say, go ahead. I'm like, tell the truth now.
We're in our late 20s, but he was a guy like he never go out like a party type guy. He was always come over, chill, drink. He liked to blaze his kite and play video games. Like we would play Star Fox and this game like where all 4 people can play, and we would drink roots wine every day and play this game. And he would call me and he'd be like, "Hey, Rasta, y'all got any of that roots wine still left over there?" I'd be like, "Yeah, man, come on through." And they would come over and we would just drink that thing and we'd have a good time like every day. And like for a period, like that's what we did. Like after work, that was how we kicked it. Like almost every day we drink some roots wine, play some video games in the house, and enjoy ourselves. And then they end up moving to Orlando after he got married. You were in the wedding, dude? You did it?
Yeah, I was in the wedding.
You in it or DJ? You was in it?
I was in it. I
were
can't
all in
remember
it?
if
Don't
I
be downplaying
DJ'd.
him. Let him be the groomsman for the day. Come on now.
Yeah, that was one of my fondest memories, that he actually wanted me to be in his. Yeah, I was in his wedding because we had to go get fitted.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That wedding reception though, boy, we cut off.
I can't even remember the reception. What happened?
We was doing all kind of Michael Jackson and
Ron,
crazy
you
stuff.
had that roots wine also?
All the dance routines.
Yes.
The dance routines came out at the wedding though.
Oh, so y'all had a little new edition thing going on, or the best man thing going on.
We got real wild at the wedding though. So Yeah, I mean, and like I said, he was a good dude, man. You know, he would confide in me in a lot of things, but he was always quiet, low key. You know, I mean, he was there, but never like look at me kind of fella. You know.
So I will say this. What you guys did is what typically happens when you're dealing with, when I'm doing counseling, when I'm dealing with death, and I implore you to share that with other people. So when a person passes away, this is going to sound, and I am Christian and so forth, it's just their physical body that's gone.
Yes.
Hold on to those memories, laugh at those memories, share those memories. I am quick to say, my sister and I, we are quick to say, she be like, girl, and I'm like, your mama, and she be like, well, your mama. I was like, well, she was your mama first. She get on my nerve. Meanwhile, our mother's been deceased for like 8 years now. But, we crack jokes. I said to my brother the other day, I said, man, the more I listen to you, the more you have that raspy voice of mom, because I was her favorite child. Boy, shut up. So we still allow her to live within us. We still allow her memories to live on. Unfortunately, we can't erase her. We cannot erase the impact that she had on our lives. And so when many people are dealing with grief and stuff like that, that's one of the things we do. You can't talk about the person. You can't say their name. You put their picture up. You memorialize them by, having their obituary in your car or on your wall or something like that. Let that person rest in peace, but also talk about them. You can say, Daniel, you know what? I'm really pissed off. I'm angry that he did that. Be open and honest with yourself. So it's not about the goods of it that, oh my goodness, he was such a great person. Nah, man, I'm pissed off that he did he did that. That was a cop way out. Listen, he could have come talk to somebody, X, Y, and Z, but also look at it from his perspective. Go ahead. You about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, like, for me, the hardest part for me to understand, like, the question I keep asking is that he has another son. So it's like, I know you lost your son, but you had another son to live for at the same time. So,
but you don't know the pain he's experienced from that.
Well, of course, that's why I don't know how I would react to that neither. But you know what I mean? That was just the question in my mind. Like, you have something to live for. It's not like you don't have anything else left to give.
But in his mind, and that's more of the questions, not questions, that would be more of the conversation. If it were possible, you have somebody else to live for. But in his head right then and there, that's why sometimes when we're going through certain things, we have to shift our atmosphere. We have to shift our focus. If we're tunnel vision, and I like to say, if we're thinking in such a linear and narrow approach, we don't see the world and what else is going on. And based upon the way you described it, I think you said with he and his son playing, was he with his son playing with the gun?
No, what happened was his son was in the house with his cousin, and apparently another family member had a gun there that the two teens got a hold of and were playing around. And to my understanding of the story, they had a skateboard and it slipped and the gun went off and he got killed. So
a few things can come from that, or probably would have come from that. A, he blamed himself, or B, and if you don't mind me using you in your case, our little Benjamin, life without Benjamin, and that being, your rock and everything else. So in that case, you're not thinking as while you should be thinking, I've got these other kids. From the way you're describing it with him, his mindset wasn't on these other kids. His mindset was, this pain is too hard to bear every day, and having to continue living with that pain. Now, if you add that with drugs and alcohol, there wasn't a right frame of mind at that point. I've met people, and some of my clients have said to me, Miss Mcfadden, I've been Baker-act because I hear voices. I've been Baker-act because people have told me, my voices have told me to kill myself. When do these voices happen? When I'm at my high point. Okay, so that's not your sober mind. That's the voices, that's that subconscious, that's that extra little, fairy dust that's telling you to do that. So there's so many things, but I will, and I'm sorry, I know you're going to say something. I will say that as a Black community, we have to do a better job of taking care of our mental health. The stigma was always there of, oh, you go see a shrink. And I've had people say, oh, well, come sit on your couch. No, you're not. You're going to sit your butt right in that chair, or we're going to talk, over this computer. We've had, as the Black community, our things are, well, you don't tell what's going on in the household. You better start telling and stop breaking those generational curses. Because we don't tell a lot of things that happen. We don't talk about great grandma that suffered from depression. And because she did that or had schizophrenia, because of that, it's now hereditary. So when it gets to me and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, you didn't talk about it 3 generations ago. So now I don't know what's going on. Let's talk about those things. Let's talk about the fact that great grandmother or, your grandmother was molested by your uncle. Let's talk about let's be open and honest. We're doing ourselves a disservice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to preach.
No, go ahead. But like what you're saying, I feel we have to acknowledge it more, and we have to have more awareness, because I think things are happening and people don't even understand or are able to really process it to do something about it. They're moving on so fast in real time that they're not really understanding. Like even in my case, like now me wanting to talk about this is only because I'm experiencing something. So before I didn't experience this, I wouldn't have been able to relate to it, in the same way. It was just been something for me, and I'd probably blow it by and just kept going. But because it hit home, because it's somebody I know, and something that like even I felt like me and my other friend, we were always talking about going up there to go see him and hang out and stuff. And even like with me, my New Year's resolution, I don't make them, but the only one I did make this year that I said to myself was that I was going to start calling people more, because you get caught up in social media. So, and my friends that are not on social media, like I don't keep in touch with them as much as the people I see every day on Facebook and Instagram, because they choose not to be on social media, and that social media is the main outlet right now for everybody. So
social media is the easy outlet for right now.
Yes, because you can see so much people doing so many things at once, but there are people out there that's not on there, and it's like, for me, I'm so used to being on there, I expect everybody to be on there, and then
so that's what I was going to say. So that means it takes work for you now to connect with those other people. And so I even charge you to say that, connect with those outside of social media. Even if you have probably no idea what the power of a simple text message can do. Hey man, you on my mind, just making sure you're good.
Yeah.
That right there.
Well, that's what I wanted to do, and I tried to call him. So that was like the beginning of the year. I was like, I'm gonna start calling everybody that I haven't spoke to in a long time, and I started doing that like beginning of the year. I was just calling people, and I tried to call him like several times. I didn't get through, and
Don't. So 2 things. I don't want you to carry the burden of this and asking yourself, what could you have done more? Obviously, you did some things. We always can do more. But again, if that person in their mind, that's what their decision is. And keep in mind that they're also under the influence of substance and, alcohol or whatever. That's a hard thing to combat. When it comes to mental health has been around for quite a while. I would say
rumbling paper.
Say it again.
Rumbling paper.
Oh, sorry, it's me. I'm in here moving my. Listen, it's either this or I'm over here with this. Hey, that means my MacBook is really good with the mic.
What is that?
So mental health has been around for quite a while. As we said back then, you heard people describe them as shrinks and so forth like that. But in honesty, they were therapists. In the past, people were ashamed to talk about going to see a therapist. I would say probably in the past, maybe 10, 12 years, has there really been an increase in conversation about mental health? Now that you're seeing, well, before that you were seeing celebrities talk about, oh, well, I'm in counseling, or I've experienced depression, or I've experienced anxiety, or I've gone to counseling for this, or my therapist says that it's becoming a bit more accepting. But additionally, on top of that, as you mentioned, it's not until you go through it or you know someone that's going through it that it hits home. I tell people, even me as a therapist, I had to see someone because I needed to process some of the anger that I was harboring. And so if you think about it, doctors have to go see other doctors for things that's going on. So why should we not feel that or why should we feel that we're able to control everything that's going on or these feelings? There are those feelings that are undescribable. Why don't I feel like getting up anymore? Why is it that I'm constantly angered? Why is it that the slightest thing ticks, I explode, someone cut me off in traffic, and all of a sudden I'm ready to shoot them down. I'm ready to chase after them. Why is it that I'm constantly crying or I can't see the light of day? Ron, I think you mentioned, I think you said it early on that not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
You have to change your perception to show people that there is light at the tunnel. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
Me?
Yes. Oh, no, I thought Ron
No,
he was going to
no.
say something. Okay.
Right.
So, we can talk all day about the mental health, but I also like to leave people with, what is it that you can do? So a few things when you're really talking about a person's mental health, sometimes our surroundings can be very toxic. So as you mentioned, Daniel, social media is a great platform. That's where most people get their news of what's taking place. But social media is also very toxic.
Yes, it is.
Detach from social media, detach from the news outlets. Every single night when I do watch the news, one of the first thing they say is, okay, here are Corona updates. Here's what's going on. When Corona first happened, I remember I had a friend that was up north and it was like, oh my goodness, our cases are going so far. And I'm like, okay, I talked to her. Then I had someone that called me, was like, oh my goodness, girl. And I was like, listen, stop. I can't take it. I know I'm usually your outlet that you come to, but right now I'm not in a place that I could take that. I apologize. And so it made them uncomfortable, but also it was making me uncomfortable because I knew I wasn't in a place where I could actually take any more of that information. And so for a few days, I didn't go on social media. I know that for me, certain times of the year, I can't go on social media because those are triggers for me, like Mother's Day. Sometimes Mother's Day is hard. Sometimes I'm great with Mother's Day. But I've realized that when I'm in certain positions or, in my mind or dispositions, I can't be there unless I'm looking at the food cooking. I can do that all day. Take care of your body, not just the physical, but the mental, the spiritual. Be cautious of what you're eating and what you're putting in your body. I tell a lot of people that it goes hand in hand with your physical and your mental. If this part isn't here, this part isn't here. And if this part isn't here, your physical isn't there, it's affecting your mental. So you have to make the change, and it's a correlation. When one of them changes, the other changes. So you can't expect to have a healthy body, but also have a disturbed mental capacity. When I think about cancer and stuff like that, and sometimes we know the root cause of cancer, but cancer also can be attributed from stress. A lot of what we see with the Black community, high blood pressure from stress. You gotta let that stress go. You gonna sit here and let this man kill you when he's out there living his life, girl? Bye. Oh, I'm sorry. I talk to my clients like that too.
Yeah, but some people don't know how to outlet that stress. I mean, some people do, and some people overdo. Become alcoholics because that balance, that thin line of just trying to relax and release becomes an everyday thing of trying to cope and forget.
And so that's not dealing with, that's numbing it. Dealing with it. I say sometimes that, and we hear it all the times within the AA, meetings, AA society, community, however it is. The first step is admitting. When I meet with my clients, I go through, this is usually my breakdown of how I talk to them. And this is some of the things I say, listen, so we're just going to have a basic conversation back and forth. It's just like you're talking to a friend. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to do all of those things. But I will tell you now that I am going to push you into those uncomfortable areas. I'm going to push you into those areas that have caused stagnation because obviously you're here for a change and you want results. also on top of that, we're going to address a lot of things that have been deeply rooted. The only thing I ask of you is to be honest with yourself. And so within that, I tell everyone, be honest with yourself. When I ask someone, how are you doing, or how did that make you feel? Our typical responses are, oh, I'm fine. It didn't bother me. I'm upset, but I'll get over it. Okay, let's talk about the part you're upset. Why are you upset? What happened to this? I've heard people say that you shouldn't be upset and angry or mad with your parents. Why not? We can go to the biblical, about, loving thy mother and thy father. I did not say I didn't love my mother and my father. I just said that I'm very angry with some of the things, I'm using this example. I just said that I'm very angry with some of the things my mother and my father did. It didn't take away from them giving me life. It didn't take away from them, providing me as parents should. But I'm in a place right now where I may hate them. I'm in a place right now where, because of the things they're doing or how my life has been impacted because of their decisions, I don't like them. I can't stand them. I hate them. I'm using this again as example.
No, like for me, I understand what you're saying.
I can relate.
Only thing I try to do in that situation is put myself in their shoes. And I always tell myself, people make decisions based on the knowledge and the resources that they have, and based on where they're coming from, their generation, how they were taught. They're only products of their generation, products of their, their environment. We have a better understanding now in our time, in our generation. And so it's hard to try to hold them accountable for some of the things, that they did. They only did what they knew how to do, what they were taught to do. I
disagree, because I'm pretty sure that some of them knew better at a lot of things they were doing and put their children through. And I don't think the environment or anything like that had any role in some of their actions and their decisions. That's just some of them, not all. But I wouldn't say that it's easier now because we're in present times and things were different. But no, everybody as an individual knows what is right and what is wrong, regardless of their environment. So I won't give them that easy pass.
So Ron, you're right. Daniel, you're right. But here's what I said. I didn't say it did not what they did. I'm saying how what they did affected me. So, for example, and you're saying similar to the same thing, but because they did X, Y, and Z, regardless of what the reason they did it and why they did it, this is how I feel. And so that part of accepting and acknowledging is, I feel this way because that hurt my feelings. I feel this way because a parent should not do that to their child. I feel this way, X, Y, and Z. It doesn't mean I don't love them. It doesn't mean I don't understand what they've gone through in their own generation, but what they're doing to me. Remember, we all have the decision that we can change if we want to change, or we can fight to stay in that same place of where we are, and then we're fighting against. Mm-hmm. So I can use, for example, many people that, as we talk about the old times. My dad and I have had this conversation a few times, and my dad is like, Mona, why do you always talk back? And I'm like, I'm not talking back. I just have my different of opinion. And I feel like I'm adult right now, so we can have a conversation where back then, and it's nothing argumentative, but back then, my dad, how dare you talk back to your parent?
Well, yeah.
And at what point do you begin to have a conversation with your parent as an adult?
You don't even have to be an adult, though. Like, my daughter's a teen, and even from when she was small, I would always sit down with her and allow her to say her part and how she felt, and if she had a valid point. Because I know a lot of times when I was young, like you say, they just want you to just
Shut
not
up.
say nothing.
Yes.
And that's the way they were taught to do it, whether you were right or wrong. But a lot of times, like, I learned at a young age, it's a point when the student is better than the master, or however that phrase goes, when you know that you know what you're talking about and they don't know what they talking about. You know what I mean? Because like their life, like even now, like when I talk to my mother or something, most of their thoughts are rooted in fear and like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to, And I would always be the black sheep and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And whatever, the superstitious stuff I don't believe in. No, take your hat off the bed and, don't walk over me type stuff. Like all those things those stigmas that hold them back. I made sure that those things could never hold me back.
And so what you're doing, part of that is, well, two things. You're breaking, again, we're talking about generational curses. And in that sense of curses not being per se is a bad thing, but you're breaking generational patterns. But also you are empowering your children. You are giving your children a voice so that when they're older, they're not mute when it's time for them to talk. They're not mumbling and their heads are down. You are giving them an opportunity to express themselves to you, but you are also opening that line of communication, letting them know that if or should something go on, you are there for them. And it's not when they're in trouble that they now come to you. So with you saying, hey, how are you feeling about this? Or, what's your thought? Or, hey, tell me, like when I have like a little cousin, I'm like, okay, so why'd you do that? Oh, I don't know. That's not good enough. So talk to me and tell me what's going on. Why? What did you learn from that? What could you have done differently? What will you do differently? And so I'm now encouraging them to, hey, I need you to think this thing through, because me yelling at you isn't going to work.
No.
And that's what our patterns were.
Yes.
And I always tell my daughter, I was like, the only thing I want you to be able to do, my biggest thing is I want you to be able to make good decisions. Because you're going to go out there and you're going to do some things. Everybody's going to go out there and do things, especially when they're young. They're going to, test the waters. But I want you to be able to make good decisions and not be, naive in your thought. I try to teach her to be observant, things that's around her. And like I say, always be able to express yourself. Don't feel like you can't talk to me, even though she's still.
It's going to take a while.
No, it's just she'll tell Fran some stuff, but she just certain things she's not going to tell me because, I have my way of doing things. And she knows with me.
You're daddy and you're the disciplinary.
And I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Like, you just can't tell me something. I'm going to ask you why you feel this way. Why is this, So if I can help you just in that, then I'm going to share a few more things. Take the approach of asking questions, not questioning. Does that make sense? Yes. I mean, that's kind of my approach. That is my approach.
So what I mean by asking questions is when I'm doing therapy, I ask questions for clarity and understanding as opposed to questions. Well, why? Well, you didn't know better? Well, who's this? Well, you should have. So asking questions, okay, so tell me why you did it that way, and what did you gain from that? So it's almost the same thing, but it's my language, it's my verbiage, it's also my tone. Because when you're questioning, you're snappy. When you're questioning, you're interrogating. When you're questioning, you like, listen, I'm in your grill. But when you're asking questions, you're a bit more calm. You're more of taking an inquisitive approach.
Well, my approach is like you say, the second one. My whole point is for her to be able to know exactly what she's really saying, not just throwing something out there. Like I've seen it, you ask a question, they just throw you an answer and people just be okay. With me, I'm going to ask a little deeper to see if you really know what you're saying, or you're just saying that to throw me off, or just, tell me more about where you get this understanding of how you got to your conclusions. It's like almost like math when we're in college and sometimes high school. You can't just provide the answer. You got to show the work in. So for me, it's like, show me the work and how you derive it, how you got to these conclusions that you blurting out so confidently. You know what I mean? You got to break that down for me. You know what I mean? Some people just, oh, no, tell me. So a lot of times she don't want to be challenged. So they'd rather go around that part and, go the easy road. Some people want to go the easy road.
So I have a question for you guys, and whomever else would like to chime in. What do you do to unwind and to detach?
You already know. The vodka and pineapple.
Healthy. What activities?
Oh, the most healthy thing for me is walking. Walking. When I get out of walking, like what I learned, especially now that I push the boundaries, like I walk like 3 miles, sometimes more. I go for an hour, put the headphones on. And in that space, when I have those headphones on and I'm listening to music and I'm walking, I get to clear my head and break down my thoughts and what I'm trying to do, and reassert my my goals, and just get focused. It allows me to focus, so I get more than just the actual walk out of it. I get time to refocus. By the time I come back, I'm warmed up, I'm ready to go, and I'm focused for the day, and my thoughts, and coming up with new ideas. All that happens along that little journey right there. I come back with ideas. Sometimes I have to just log them in my phone, because it's like, okay, you can do this, you can do that. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's what I get out of that.
Ron, what about you?
Well, I used to train in martial arts. That used to help me. Haven't done it in a while because of a certain situation I was in. But I plan on getting back into that soon. It always clears my head, helps me focus, and it's good for my body.
What do you do now?
Not really anything. Not until my doctor really says, okay, you can do this now. But
it doesn't have to be physical.
Oh, well, then I DJ. That's what I do.
Okay, because it doesn't, your hobby and your way to unwind doesn't have to be physical. It can be writing. It could be cooking. It could be eating. That's not healthy. It can be definitely working out, painting, doing crossword puzzles. Say it again.
Making music.
Yes, that too.
Making music. So when we're talking about dealing with our mental health, believe it or not, finding different ways and healthy ways to unwind or to detach really does have a big impact. Because what's happening is you're breaking when I talked about that whole, that linear focus, right now you're just seeing tunnel vision. But when you're actually unwinding and you're kind of separating yourself, so this is the problem, I've separated myself from the problem. When I come back to the problem, I'm now able to see it from a different perspective. I'm now able to see from a holistic approach and say, okay, well, I know this way hasn't worked. How can I now attack it in this manner? But also, it's healthy for the body. Think about it. If you were constantly induced in stress, that's like being induced in labor for all day. There's a constant pain. You're constantly pushing. But what happens when you're finding like, okay, you know what? Stop, take a break, pause, whatever the case is, however it may be. Now I'll come back to that later. So one of the ways of coping with our mental health or even addressing our mental health is to make sure that we are unwinding or we're finding things that give us pleasure, healthy things. And I keep saying healthy things. Don't get me wrong. Having a glass of wine, having a drink. Say it again.
Isn't that a matter of perception?
Well, no, I'm gonna address it. Having a glass of wine, having a drink, partaking in whatever your activities are, if that helps you unwind, and I know I shouldn't say it as being licensed, whatever the illegal piece of that is, caution yourself that it doesn't become a Band-Aid. That is just putting a patch on what's really going on. And eventually you have to take that Band-Aid off and address the problem.
But isn't that going to be dependent on the person? Because, I mean, if you're a person, you're already not disciplined in life and not able to control yourself in most aspects of your life, you're going to have a problem with that immediately once you start trying to do that thing. You're not,
which is why the conversation right now is about finding healthy ways to cope, healthy ways to unwind. So if you're a person that knows that you don't know your limitations, alcohol is not your way to unwind. Because alcohol now becomes part of your coping. As I said, alcohol becomes your Band-Aid. So that becomes your numbing. Because once you sober back up, guess what? That problem is still sitting right there, or that concern is still sitting right there. So we can sit and unfortunately to use it as reference, your friend, you said he started using substance. The substance stopped the pain for right then and there, but it's still there. So the whole thing is you're finding healthy ways to unwind and healthy ways to cope. A glass of wine, there is nothing wrong with a glass of wine or a drink. Many people have said, you're not come home and have a glass of wine each night because I need to unwind. If you're okay with that, fine. But do you come home and have a whole bottle to where you go to bed at night a little slushed? That's when you need to say, what is it about? What is it from the drinking that you're trying to avoid? So again, healthy? Your vodka and pineapple? Sure. How much vodka and pineapple? What's your state of mind after your vodka and pineapple? What happens after your vodka and pineapple? What's your behavior after your vodka and pineapple? So those are the things that we're talking. Vodka and pineapple, sure. Put a little cherry in it too while you're at it.
Nah, no cherries. Just a splash of
A
pineapple.
little pink lemonade.
No, you know what that pink thing did the other day. That's not even.
So,
2 or 3 more things, and then after that, I'm done. Unless anybody else have anything.
Well, I do have somebody else to bring on.
Oh, you should have told me that. I'm sitting here talking this whole time. I could have been done.
I got one more for you though. As far as men, the brothers, what would you say to us? Because even like, I guess we grew up in that don't cry era. You know what I mean? Silent, and we keep thinking like I look at my friends as soldiers. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna bounce back. You know what I mean? You got this. You know what I mean? You don't think that they might actually need more, you know, than that, you know what I mean? Because you just think everybody's tough and, you know, can handle things, but how do you identify when they can't, and how do we, you know, embrace each other more and look out and
You just said it. Embrace each other more. Give them a space, letting them know it's okay. I saw a post one day. I told you stories and analogies and stuff. I saw a post one day, and a young lady said she was at her aunt's house, and her son that was 7 started to cry. And the aunt said, "No, you don't cry. You know, men don't cry and stuff." However she said, and the young lady stopped her and she said, "No, I allow my son to cry because he has emotions and he has feelings." And so think about it. Crying is a sign of release, but we've identified and deemed crying as a sign of weakness. If your mother passed away, you not gonna cry?
yeah, can't cry for all the time though. You gotta.
I didn't cry for all the time, but releasing it. So in that case, letting people know, it's something that we do, but we don't realize it. Whenever a person cries, this is what we do. It's okay. It's okay. That's okay. It's okay. And pretty much what we're telling them, stop. Stop. All right, now you've been crying enough. It's all right, Mona. You're going to be okay, Mona. It's going to be okay. You're going to be all right, Mona. Stop. So we're stopping that person from their release. I can't even count countless times I've hugged people, and as they're crying, and I don't know why, this is probably the therapist in me. I've hugged them and I say to them, release it. Go ahead, let it go. And all of a sudden you feel their body just go limp and they let it out. And when they're done, they'll whisper to me, thank you. Because everyone's kind of stopped them from releasing that emotion. And so, Daniel, you mentioned it. It's embracing them. It's moving that masculine role or that masculine identity that men shouldn't show emotions. But at the end of the day, you have tear ducts. You have feelings. When your baby was born, did you not get excited and all mushy and teary-eyed and stuff like that? So why are you not able to cry? Why are you not able to show? I'm not saying that you walk around and every little thing happens, you cry from it. But if something affects you, and especially as we're talking about breaking generational patterns and generational curses and stuff like that, those are things we need to break. Letting your son, your son cries, hey man, what's going on? What happened? You okay? Now they're crying because, they got in trouble. Hey, why are you crying? Is something hurt? Is something bothering you? Did someone do something to you? Okay, so why are we crying? So you're able to also identify what those cry means. We cry when we're excited. Why can't we cry when we're sad?
I have another thing going back to, you just said identifying. I mean, are there any telltale signs of identifying when someone is actually crying out for help? For example, at my old job, me and a couple of other managers were drafted to work on this project for this new software. And we were all grouped to an office. And I had this one guy, older guy. We met, we talked. I seen him around the building, but really didn't know him. But he he got to, as I got to know him, he was a good guy. One thing he did tell me, and throughout all of our conversations, he was just like, don't get married. He said, whatever you do, don't get married. And I thought that was very odd until I found out, okay, he was going through a divorce. So, I thought it was like maybe a joke. He was just like warning me, like, be careful with who you get involved with. But one of the things he just kept saying, don't get married, Ron. And every morning I come in before him and I see him coming around the corner into the office every morning. And then one morning, I'm looking at my watch and saying, wow, he didn't come yet. Like, what's going on here? 5 minutes pass, an hour pass, 4 hours pass. He didn't show up. He didn't show up that whole day. The next day he didn't show up. The third day we found out he killed himself. So I was like, hold up, this guy didn't give me any clue or any signs that something was wrong. He came to work, he smiled every day, we talked. He didn't talk much about his wife or ex, but I had no idea that whatever he was going through was so serious that he would kill himself over it. So, are there any signs that maybe, even the person who's going to do it may be giving off and they're not even aware that, they're giving off these signs?
That's a hard one. And I say that's a hard one because sometimes people will give you signs and sometimes you just won't know. It may be, what he was already dealing with. And so don't get married could have been an opportunity for you to ask, well, man, why you say that? What's going on with, your marriage or what happened in your life? So you could do it that way. And then in that case, he may not have wanted anyone to know. The one thing I'm realizing about suicide when it happens, it's not your fault. I know it sounds crazy. And most people ask, well, what could I have done? We say, yeah, you could have talked to that person, but then you talking them out of that meant that they would have waited and do it later. I had a client that shared with me that her mother attempted suicide at least 3 times, and the 4th time she was successful. So there wasn't much talking that would have helped her after a while. If that was her true intent, because she wanted to escape what she was experiencing, it didn't leave much room for anything else. And so in the case of the guy right there, I honestly don't know. You could have had a conversation with, man, hey, why do you keep saying don't get married? But for him to give you warning signs based upon what you shared with me, he was still coming to work. He was still engaged with you. As you said, you got to talk to him and know he was a pretty good guy. So there weren't any warning signs. That goes back to what I mentioned earlier with Daniel. We don't know a lot of times what a person is going through. So just a regular wellness check could be that thing that later on they send you a message. Man, listen, Ron, you didn't know it, but today I really thought about committing suicide. But because you sent a message and said, hey, what's going on, really changed my perspective on things. We don't know.
But in some cases, people have their mind made up, so they're not even going to tell you. So
that's that part.
You can't really do nothing about that part when it's that to that. Part. And especially like with guys, you have your mind made up a lot of times that you're going to do something and you're not going to tell nobody because for the fear they may talk you out of it, and you already done talk yourself into it. So you just want to go ahead and do it. I don't know. It kind of reminds me like with my dad, like him being ill, like he won't tell you when nothing's wrong with him. Like he don't want to tell you. He don't want to go to the hospital, but there's a problem. And like they're telling me now, like, and I'm telling friends, I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want me to strong arm him into going into these procedures when I know he's not going to go into the procedures? Like he wouldn't let him do an MRI. He jumped off the table, started fighting everybody in the hospital. He yanked the catheter out. He didn't want that in. He pulls the IVs and stuff out when he goes in there. So it's like, how you treat somebody like that? You can't really, their mind is made. Doctor asking me like, what do I want to do? Do I want to try to do these procedures and seek this treatment, or just get something to make him happy and comfortable?
So then, if I can ask this, and then you have a hand raised also. Um, ask him, what do you want? And listen to really what he has to say. What do you want? Because based upon that, it might be a waste of breath. He really may say, nah, I'm good. I don't want anything else.
Hi, Lisa. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We
Hi,
can.
Lisa.
Hey. Nice.
Thank you for joining us. Sorry
I
we
just
started
wanted to-
late, but getting this Zoom to work was not easy. The cameras do not
Oh,
like
no.
playing with each other. They were not friendly at all.
It's fine. I just didn't want Sha to go because I wanted her to stick around.
Who, Miss Shamona? Shamona.
Yes, Miss Shamona. I changed her name to Sha already.
Listen, I get Sha, I get Mona, I get Hey, so I'm okay with it.
No, I wanted to interject a little bit because just coming from my background,
Tell us
and I kept hearing
your story. Well, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead. You do.
Well, I'll say this and then I'll go to my story. But I kept hearing about, what I could have done. You're saying what you could have done, and then sometimes there is like, is it Sha Simone? Mona. I'll say Simone.
Mona's fine.
Is what Mona was saying.
Like Mona Lisa.
Sometimes there is nothing you could have done because it's not about you. It's about the person who's going through it, who did it, and it wasn't even though they left you behind, holding the bag, so to speak. Don't take that and make it about, oh my gosh, what did I do to let them down, or what could I have done? Because sometimes there is nothing, not one thing you could have done.
I believe
at all.
So share with us your experience.
Okay, so my name is Lisa. I grew up in the Caribbean.
Which island, by the way?
Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinity, okay.
Yeah, and I migrated in my teens, but I came from a background of mental illness. It's crazy people. If you have any mental illness, you're going to go to the St. Anne's where they locked you up. Or you were running the streets naked. Yeah. Crazy. That's what
it's
mental
like that
illness
in the whole Caribbean.
Equated to my brain.
That's how it is in the Bahamas as well.
But that's how it is in most Caribbean or third world countries. To this day, it is still like that. So that's how I grew up. I grew up as, suck it up. That mentality, whatever is going on, just suck it up and keep moving, because I guess mental illness didn't really exist. There was never a conversation of that wellness part. For, if you're sick, you go to the doctor, birth control, all of these things. Nobody taught me how to protect myself mentally, if that made sense. So I was in New York for 9/11. I was at the next door at the telephone company. So we had a little front seat view of the second plane. We felt the first plane and we evacuated, and for some reason milled around, looking up, going over the infrastructure work that we would have had to do because the cell towers was on top of the building. So the second plane, when it came and it slammed in, it was like, OMG. So that I experienced that, and I ended up having to work maybe about a year of mandatory overtime for the phone company. We had one day off, and then we had to find a way to into Lower Manhattan to get bused to a different place where we could go to work. So that had happened, and it never was treated. It's just something that happened. Oh, I was there. But in my brain, it was like a surreal thing. I was there, but I wasn't there. But that went on, and then I had the bright idea that I was going to leave New York because I was so scared all the time. I really couldn't go on the train. Everything was starting to, but that was the beginning of it. But I didn't recognize it because I didn't know. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And I moved to Indiana. Moved to Indiana. Still nothing was treated with the 9/11 scenario, mind you. I get pregnant. I had a really traumatic miscarriage. That was the trigger that, well, it was basically the straw that broke the camel's back in what everything was happening, because I was putting layers of trauma upon trauma and nothing was getting treated because you know, nothing's wrong. You just, whatever happens, you just suck it up and you go through life. So after that had happened, so 9/11 was in 01. So I say about 04, really, after the miscarriage, I started to develop where I would go home. I couldn't even, when I entered the house, I had to check everywhere. Open the doors, open the cabinets, underneath the bed. I was like, what the heck? But who could I talk to? I couldn't talk to anyone because crazy people do this and I'm not crazy. Right?
I mean, I
So,
check my
and then
cabinet.
and then I had isolated myself. I was living far away from everybody. There was nobody here in Indiana that I knew. And then, you know, everything just got really bad and it built till one day I went home. I left my job and I went home and I literally, I think I had some pills from the miscarriage that they'd give me when they had did the surgery, and I had kept them and I just swallowed them all. Nobody knew anything was wrong because I got up every day and I went to work and I just went home and existed. What happened is that a girl I had met, she said she had a bad feeling and she just wanted to talk to me. I don't know what it was, but she kept calling and calling and calling and I wouldn't pick up the phone. And then somewhere in my subconscious, I heard like the phone ringing and I tried to get it and I knocked it over, but it was her. And she panicked and she actually came to the house. She called the police. They kicked the door in and that's how they found me. I mean, they took me to the hospital. They pumped my stomach. It was like, what the heck happened? You know? So that was episode one there. I think I had 3 days off and I went right back to work. It was untreated. Something major like that, it was like, okay, back to work. You don't tell anybody. There's nobody to tell, to share it with. And then, you know, go on again till I think we're at 2006 now. I had left the other job and I went to another job. Same thing, I started to get the little panic attacks again, the hypervigilance, and I always have to check everything now. That was a pattern now. It's like, okay, now I'm starting to get that post-traumatic stress thingy of where I'm like, okay, I have to look. I had a whole, almost I was never diagnosed with it, but it was almost a obsessive compulsive disorder thingy thing. So, you know, that happened. So a year later, same thing happened. I just was like, this, you know, I can't deal with it because I was going through now. At that point, remember, I had lost the baby and I really wanted a child. So all of that stuff, I just kind of stuffed it, and I never dealt with it. And same thing, I just woke off the job and went home, and I didn't go to work for about maybe on the third day, one of the managers there, I did not know, she had lost a child to suicide. And she said, where is Lisa? And they were like, oh, she called out. And she was like, what do you mean she called out? She's always here. I went to work every day on time for almost a year. And all of a sudden, I'm missing in action. And they're like, oh, she calls out. And they're like, is she sick? I don't know. She was like, that don't sound right. So she called me. And she was like, what's wrong? I was like, nothing. I'm not coming to work. No, that's what it was. They said she had quit. And she was like, what? That's insane. So she called me. She said, what's going on? I said, nothing. She said, healthy, normal people do not just up and quit their job. Something is wrong. Talk to me. And I was like, no, nothing is wrong. And she was like, you know, I am going to come get you and we're going to go to St. Vincent's. That's option one. Option two is the police will be at your door. Choose.
Easy choice, or was it a hard choice?
It was an easy choice. So, you know, she came and she talked to me and she was like, you know, and she was like a grandmother, older lady, and she had shared what had happened with her. And she said nobody saw it with her child. And, you know, but all she knew was her daughter had did the same thing, just quit her job. And she was like, oh no, that's a trigger for her. Like, no, that's. So I ended up going to a place called St. Vincent's. It's a Catholic-based place, but they call it the stress center. So I ended up voluntarily signing myself in, and that began the first step to the, you know, diagnosis and treatment. And while I was there, I think I only spent like a couple days, and then I took like a week or so off, and I went into little therapy sessions and stuff. They were really big on cognitive behavioral therapy. I still use that to this day, but that started that. For me, they had put me on some medication that it didn't quite work out for me. And when I had a stressor, well, let me back up a little bit. So while I was there, they basically said I had post-traumatic stress disorder from 9/11, and then that developed into a major depression. So I had those two things going on with me at the same time for years. And it was basically like you had a cancer and you just let it grow and grow and grow, and you never took care of it. So while I was there, you know, I did a little therapy and everything, and then I started the medicine. And just for me, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, that's why I didn't want you to leave. But for me, the medicine had a side effect. It didn't work too well with me. And once I left managed cares, like I call it, the group therapy and everything, and I was by my own, and certain situations started and there were stressors, like I fell back again into that episode of that major depressive episode. And what do I have here? You give somebody who does not finish a pill bottle a whole bunch of pills. So I had all of these half-used pills sitting around. Here we go again. Episode 2. So at that point, I think it was like, I don't even know how much Xanax I took. It was like ridiculous. But in taking it, I fell and I hit my head. When I woke up, it was days later, I came out of intensive care, and I always say the stench of smelling myself clicked something in my brain, like, this is not
It's not who you
how
want
I'm
to
going to go, where nobody knew me, nobody even missed me. I was in intensive care for 5 days. That's how isolated I was. I had family, everybody would call or check on whatever, but for 5 days I was gone and nobody knew I was there to even come take care of me. So when that had happened, at that point, I did, I was so fortunate that the employer I had was like, you know what, enough's enough. What do you need to get better? Because around that time, everybody was very, still 9/11 was still a big thing, in everybody's mind. So with that being said, and, because at this point now, this was a major attempt as what the first one was, but this one here, I mean, I was gone basically for intensive care for that long.
My curiosity and the narrative. How were you found? How did they find you?
How?
I said, just for my curiosity and the narrative of your story, how did they find you? You were home with your medication?
No, that was the cry for help. Because when that attempt happened, I had called, and this is how sometimes the healthcare or the system, when you make a cry for help and you say, okay, I'm having a crisis, and now you have to wait for somebody to say, okay, go here or go there, or where are you, or are you safe? Yeah, I'm safe. No, I'm not. So I was actually at that point at the hospital waiting for intake, and they were taking so long, I just got up and left. And while I was in the car, in the parking lot, is when I took it. So even that was a cry for help, because I didn't do it at home alone. I did it where I could have been found. So even that was a cry for help of where did I do it? So that's where they found me, and that's how I hit my head on the ground. But basically after that, I literally took a year off. I took a year off, and I went to the I didn't like the group sessions. I thought I was like, at this point in denial. After all of that, I'm not crazy. Why am I here with these crazy people? Because when you're in group therapy, it's a mixed bag of mental illness. Very mixed bag. So at that point, it was either you're going to do this or you're going to be out of, and I had a really good job at that point, So it was like, here's the time. It was paid. I was very fortunate to have paid leave to do this. And I had to go 5 times a week. Basically every day I had to go to intensive therapy, group therapy, 2 hours a day. It was, and that's where I got my medicine. They wouldn't even give me any medicine. It was in safekeeping because I was so untrustworthy at that point in their eyes. So that to say, even when all of this happened, my family didn't even know. They found out years after, when I was to a point of healing, because even in that, there was a deep shame in what I did and what I was feeling, if that makes any sense. So your friend, I know you said your friend, he passed, and there was so much things going on, and I don't know what he was feeling, but for me, I could say, he's a black, if he was a black man, I'm assuming he's a black man, if he even came from a Caribbean heritage, or, he was taught all his life that he cannot have a mental illness, that was an impossibility for him. So to even have those feelings, for me, I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of shame. It was some deep-rooted shame in that I couldn't cope.
It was also probably a unfamiliar territory for you.
It was very unfamiliar, even to admit it, you know, even to admit to say, you know what, my brain is not thinking right in this situation. So that became such like, okay, okay, I, did I'm a big fan of cognitive behavioral therapy. So I
Yes.
would self-talk myself out of a lot of things. So you were asking one of your questions, Daniel was like, well, what do I do to cope? And I'm like, I still use that to this day. So after 2007, it was basically where I didn't want to be on any medication whatsoever. And only because I had a plan that was able to work for me. If anybody's listening, I don't ever want anybody to think, oh, well, I'm not going to take my medicine. For me, and I had a plan and I had backup. I had a whole team situation with me not taking it because we had gotten me to a point where I know my signs. I know all my triggers. I knew, okay, when this started to happen, if I need to have a safe, hey, we had gotten that support system for me at that point where I was no longer isolated. There were, a couple people that were very familiar with what was going on. They were friends. They weren't even family because, like I said, my family still didn't even know at that point that I had attempted suicide twice. So it was like, okay. I got really, I don't want to say religious, but more spiritual. And that really helped me. That really, really, really helped me with a lot of stuff. And now that I'm to this point of healing, like I said, never share past the point of healing. So, I'm healed to the point of where the stigma and the shame isn't there for me with that. And I could talk about it. So now we have COVID-19 going on. I'm isolated again. We're cut off from everybody. What I used to do for stress relief was carnival. There is no carnivals anywhere.
Make your
Carnival
own
is canceled.
carnival. Make your own carnival.
But the thing about carnival is about people. It's about a celebration of ourselves and our culture, and that is gone. And you can't even, the good thing about carnival is there were so many different ones seasonally. So guess what? You can't even look forward. So that piece of having a little hope of looking forward is gone. So it's like, okay, what do you do? Like, okay, we're going to just pivot and we're going to do other things. We're not going to sit and be like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world because we already know our triggers. So, basically, I've just gotten involved in a lot of other things.
Healthy things, right?
Oh yeah, healthy things. I drink a little. I drink a little, but I don't drink a lot because I'm very familiar with my trigger stuff. I never was a big the drinking part. The drinking and the drugs, that was not part of it for me. I had a major thing happen with the post-traumatic stress with 9/11, and it never went untreated. It stayed there and it stayed there and it stayed there till the pressure built up. And then the miscarriage on top of that, there was just no more. There was just no more that the vessel could take, the cracks.
I just want to pause for a second and say thank you. One of the things I do say is just thank you for sharing your story, sharing your narrative. I know this may not be my area, but just thank you for that, because I do realize that once you've been through something, especially of that nature, of that magnitude, as you've said, that it does become a shameful experience to discuss, to share. As you said, your family hadn't known about it. Let me ask, how long did it take for your family to know, or when did you share with your
Oh my
family?
gosh. It was like maybe 3 years later. So
And so
maybe in 2009, 10, I think maybe 2011.
you had
Yes.
to begin healing first before you can actually share with them what's going on.
Oh
But
yeah.
it goes back to, and like I said, I had some stuff here, but again, thank you for that. Just really being in each time you share this story, you're in a vulnerable space again. You're in a vulnerable
Yes.
space of exposing yourself for people seeing, as we say, taking off the mask, them seeing the true identity, not even identity that's not your identity, them seeing true parts of you that wouldn't be addressed or shared anywhere else. And so that takes a lot of courage. And just again, thank you for that. I don't know if many people say it, but I just always like to say thank you just for being open enough to sharing your story. You mentioned something, and I'm going to add those really fast. Ways of dealing with mental health, depression, anxiety, suicide, all of those things, or suicidal attempt. Lisa said it. Connect with others. One of the things that you mentioned that was very important is you had people that were invasive. Um, we sometimes say, "Oh, well, I don't want to invade their privacy." Invade it. Ask questions. Where are you going? What's going on? If you think about it, I think you said your supervisor or coworker, whomever it was, had not come, you may not be here to share this conversation with us tonight. So that's an example of connecting with others. You're talking again about, and right now we're in COVID. Our communication is now digital. Unless we're seeing someone outside in the park and we're able to say hi, or there's someone we actually trust that we could sit 6 feet apart with our mask on, or going to someone's backyard barbecue and just trusting everyone there, then, we have to still find ways that we can connect with them. And so that's something that's really important. And let the connections be something different. So when COVID first happened, everyone was doing Zoom calls. Hey, let's make sure we get together. And now that we are, we're indoctrinated in the COVID culture, how many of those Zoom calls still take place, except for when we're talking about meetings, or we've seen for holidays and stuff like that. So still staying connected. Something also, and I'll add this, I didn't have it, is having accountability partners. If you've gone missing for 5 days and someone hasn't talked to you, there should be someone calling. I have at least 3 people, if they have not talked to me in 2 days. Hey, you all right? What's going on? Oh, I thought you had attitude. I thought you had an attitude, but you didn't call to check on me because I had an attitude. And so we're cracking jokes, but even one of my girlfriends, she's like, you didn't pick up your phone today. I know, I didn't talk to you today. So, my pastor and I talk about it, that when he gets on a flight, when he gets off that flight, hey, I've made it. Hey, this is what's going on. So always have someone that is depending on you, or I would say that not depending, but someone that they're expecting to hear from you, and you should be expecting to hear from them as well. And Lisa, your story came just right on time. Connect with community and or faith-based organizations. Right now, we are again and you'll always hear me talk about the COVID culture is the way I've defined it now. But even in the COVID culture, there are still resources that are available for you. There are still church services, and you said that you become a lot more spiritual within your practice and your faith and so forth. So finding ways that you're able to connect, if it's not with the church, hey, let's see what the local YMCA is doing that we can join in virtual. Let's play this old school bingo, but it's something now that's going to keep you interacting and engaging with others. Let me ask this question, and then I'm going to have to leave in a few seconds. What have you guys found? And Lisa, this is for you also, Ron and Daniel. What have you guys started doing that's different now than what you did before?
And this
Before what?
Before COVID?
Yes, before COVID. I'm sorry.
Well, we have the Here Goes Nothing podcast every Friday night at 10 o'clock.
There you go.
Since I DJ a lot, and that's pretty much been wiped out as far as the clubs and the parties. I tried to do some live streaming, which I was very hesitant to do before this whole COVID situation, but now it's like kind of force me to do that if I want people to still remember who I am, you know.
Good. Lisa, what do you do?
Well, it's a struggle because I used to travel. That's the only thing I want to do is travel and have carnival. So I have started to jump on a lot more social media stuff. There's, a couple people I follow that do DJ stuff, or they have their lives and stuff. And I just say, you know what? Okay, you're having one on Sunday. I'll be there. That's my going out time for 2 hours there. Somebody's doing a Zumba soca exercise hour. Okay, I'll be doing that. This year, though, I can't go through what I did last year, which was staying home the whole year, quarantining. And now that I'm working from home, I'm home. I'm not seeing anyone now. Now I'm isolated 100%. I go to the grocery store and come back. So what I decided to do was each month I am traveling. I've been on a trip already for January, and we have one in February, but even going on it takes a lot of testing. Everybody has to get tested. It takes a whole lot of planning to even get it done. So that's where I'm at right now in planning just a month ahead. I'm not planning anything long term. I'm focusing on, okay, what's the next 30 days? What can I do this next 30 days? So my plan is to still make my little carnival stuff. So what can I do now in anticipation of when the world opens up again, even if it happens next 3 years?
And so what I ask, and you guys are all right, it's creating the new norm. And so as much as everyone's ready for COVID to expire next month, it's not going anywhere for a while. And as honest as I can be, isolation and quarantining is not fun, and it does have an impact on your mental health. Your walls become a little closed in. Your space becomes very confined and small. And it's just that whole concept of I can't get out what's going on. So finding new things to do. When we first saw that COVID happened and we started experiencing our pandemic and everything shutting down, I remember seeing countless families riding around on bicycles. I remember seeing countless people actually out walking and exercising and so forth, or, going these different places. However, as we've opened back up, and South Florida, we're wide open.
Yeah, I was about to say,
South Florida, we're wide open down here, guys. Don't come to South Florida if you listen. We don't need any more people here. But as we're opening back up, I'm seeing less of those things happening. And so being transparent again, we know COVID is not going, so we have to create new things. So, you mentioned your trip, so I would have made the suggestion, find a different part of your city to explore each month. Finding a different part of your city. So, and I don't know where you're located, but I'm just giving I'm just giving examples.
It's cold.
And so, do you have a car?
No, it's cold. It's the temperatures. No, it's temperatures.
No, do you have a car?
Oh yeah, I got a car.
Go outside. So, and when I say
unless she's saying she snowed in.
Yeah, you're right. Unless you're snowed. But
it's 28 degrees. It's 28 degrees right now. It's probably dropped down to
Lisa, where are
below
you?
20. I'm in Indiana right now.
I love this. Hey Alexa, what's the temperature outside?
Right now, it's 65 degrees.
Oh, we're 65 degrees. Just thought I'd rub it in a little. No, but honest and truthfully, so treat right now with you being in the house during this temperature and during this season as you would have done it last year, this time of year. So find things to do while you're inside. And so I had to tell people, change your perspective. Don't say, oh my goodness, had we not had COVID, I couldn't have done this. Start asking yourself, what can I do while we have COVID? So something that's small. If you feel safe, a backyard barbecue with no more than about 8 people. If you feel safe, and we know right now for you and where you are that it's cold, it may be when it's not snowing in Indiana that you go and find a different area of your neighborhood that you can check out, of your city that you can check out. It may be taking a day trip to Ohio or someplace like that. And so it's about now exploring opportunities and possibilities. I talked with the client and she said that for her mother's birthday, and they're in New York, they went to the beach and they all sat apart. They went during the time that it was during the day. And so, when the sun was up, so it wasn't as windy or chilly as it would be at night. So for everyone that's listening, we know we're not going back. And even when we are back to what is identified as normal, it won't be normal. There is no way we can reverse back to where we've come from. So now how do we create our new normal? And I always say, what does our new normal look like? And that's the biggest thing. If you guys take away from nothing, is creating your new normal. The last thing, and like I said, I'm done. Counseling, y'all. Go to counseling. Talk to someone.
Talking to you right now. You are our resident counselor from here on out.
Don't worry about it. I got invoices ready.
We're gonna cut you.
But honest and truthfully, go to counseling. It's good to go and talk to your friend. It's good to talk to your significant other. It's good to sometimes even talk to your pastor, but also go and get professional help. Your pastor can give you pastoral counseling. And depending on where that level is, I'll say for my pastor, he's already said, oh, that's what's going on. Now you need to go to Shamona. Let me go ahead and refer you to Shamona right now. So my pastor is quick about it. That's not my area. You want to talk about marriage counsel, spirituality and stuff like that. When you're talking about the mental health, you go to Shamona, because me telling you to pray over it is not going to work. But also when you think about it, and Lisa, as you said, and I'm glad again that you were able to come on tonight, it wasn't until you actually began taking your counseling serious that you begin to see the change. And so go to counseling, break the stigmas and the patterns of what we've seen about counseling. Counseling, listen, if I'm your counselor, we good.
I wish I had you as a counselor. Nobody could relate to me. I have not had a minority counselor in my whole time. That's when it came to be like, you don't get parts of me, so we're going to just help me what you can help me with, because you don't get parts of me at all. But that's why too, I'm trying to be a little bit more vocal about it, because how can we break the stigma if we still keep it and nobody wants to talk or nobody wants to share, or, because people are going to talk.
Yes.
That's not going to stop. And that we have this, to this day, well, you're a professional, that to this day, the stigma is so deep rooted, and it's like, it has such a stranglehold. And, how can we as a community heal from a lot of things that is being caused by mental illnesses?
The more we have talks like this. So I didn't say it, I told you, thank you. But to Daniel and Ron also, thank you guys for providing a platform where mental health can be discussed. There should be more opportunities to have conversations. And I would even encourage you that, if there are call-in opportunities to where people can really just address or express some of the concerns they've had. Again, because when we talk about the Black community, it's always secret. It's very hush hush. We don't talk about those things. As you guys mentioned, being from Caribbean, anytime you saw someone that there was mental challenges or mental concerns, they were quickly identified as crazy. because you didn't want to be deemed crazy or, have that label attached to you, you weren't able to recognize what your signs were. And so imagine if you actually grew up in an area that say, hey, are you okay? We need to get someone for you to talk to. So just really having more conversations. And even Lisa, I will tell this for you. You may not have to share your story, but share your experience. So you may not have to share, I went through attempted suicide, but I've gone through some things before. And because I went to counseling, it helped me to overcome those things. Mm-hmm. And I only say that to you because I know one or two things. Sharing your story can empower you, or sharing your story can discourage you, or put you back into that same reverse place over and over again.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's an empowering thing, but I am very cognizant of other people's energy, and I want to protect myself from that. That's why I don't share it like that. But this is like maybe the third time I've shared it publicly. So it's not a secret thingy, but just because I know of the community I'm in and I have to still protect myself, that's why, sometimes I'm just like, if I'm called to. And when Danielle said that, I was like, oh my gosh, my condolences. I feel so bad for you and for your friend and his family, that I was called to share it. I probably won't share it again for another couple years.
Wow. Thank you very much for doing so with us.
Lisa, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. Mona,
Hi.
you're the best, man. You're the best. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're glad you came on here. You guys, it's been a wonderful show. And hopefully we can